Today's episode is brought to you by Path 11 TV, inspiring entertainment for the spiritually curious. With a Path 11 TV membership, you get instant access to over 100 hours of exclusive video content that explores consciousness, healing, and life after death. Also with the Path 11 TV membership, you can attend our monthly events and live streams free. In the past few months, we've already had medium readings with Drew Calley and Suzanne Northrup, along with a numerology session with Nicene Siegel, and Chinese face readings with Marla Goldberg. Join us for our next event, July 21st, for another gallery reading, this time with medium Mark Schmidt. You can start your Path 11 TV membership for just $9.99 a month, or get 2 months free by getting an annual membership. Podcast listeners can save even more by using coupon code PODCAST30. This will take 30% off, making your first year only $70. That's only 20 cents a day. Don't hesitate, because this offer is only good for a limited time. All membership plans have a 7-day free trial. So start streaming with your membership to Path 11 TV today by visiting path11tv.com and start satisfying your spiritual curiosity with our exclusive library of inspiring entertainment. Now let's get to today's show. Hi, and thanks for tuning in to the Path 11 podcast. I am your host, April Hanna. At the Path 11 podcast, we are here trying to deliver leading-edge research on consciousness, healing, and metaphysics. And just like you, we are trying to answer the big questions about life. Who are we? Why are we here? And what is our purpose? We hope by listening to our podcast, it will make each day you live on Earth a little easier to understand. And now for today's podcast. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. My guest is Sunil Varma. He's a starseed high-level healer, an energy life coach, and lifestyle engineer. I just love those titles there. His main specialty is in holistic relationship coaching, but he also considers himself a starseed, a healer, and a light worker. So Sunil works solely for the light and commits to serving humanity. His intuitive inner guidance enables him to sense the emotions of others, and he strives to alleviate pain and despair. His goal is to let love and light flow through his words, actions, and luminous guidance. So, Sunil, welcome to the Path 11 podcast.
Thanks, April. Love being here. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I like the way you brought in my biography.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Yeah, there's so much here, and the words are really beautiful, and we'll put it in the show notes and reads as like these really eloquent paragraphs. And I was really just trying to take out like, wow, all these different things, that you do. And so why don't we start from the beginning? Because I'm also trained in hypnotherapy. So I know that you have a background in that, and we're trained by hypnotherapists and NLP coaches. But it also sounds to me that you've also, like most of us, have had a spiritual awakening, and you're identifying as a star seed. So I'd like us to talk a little bit about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That happened in 2016. Suddenly this mass awakening took place within me, and that was due to the fact that I've been working on myself since I was 30. So I was always doing deep work, just because I just didn't feel free inside. And I was working with so many people, and the more I worked on obviously I realized that in order to help other people, you must work on your own blind spots.
Yes.
And when I was 30, I was very sick. So I couldn't really do much. I couldn't really walk. So my walking was really not so good. And I think because of the immense pain that I was dealing with, it forced me to really look at things a lot deeper and do a lot of inquiry work. And at that time, there was a lady called Byron Katie, and I remember I would always do her 4 questions religiously, spend the whole day, like 12 hours a day doing this inner work. And I did that for probably like 4 or 5 years. And through doing it, I started to understand my own stories and where they came from. I started to understand more of my inner terrain. So otherwise, it was quite a very unknown place for me. And so the more I started to see all the places in me, the more I wrote it out. The more I realized that it wasn't really it wasn't achieving the freedom that I wanted to achieve. Even though I got it intellectually when I did the 4 questions, I knew that something wasn't moving the core, the emotional pain. So, long story short, the more I did that, the more that I started doing the hypnotherapy. I took a hypnotherapy course and an NLP course. And I started, after that, I was working as a restaurant manager, and I was always in immense pain because you'd have to do all these long shifts. And I struggled so hard to do 10-hour shifts, managing like 80 to 85 people a day, always in pain. My ankles were like footballs and they were black, so it's so much pain. I'd always be taking tablets. And when I would go home at night, I'd have to sit there for an hour when I got back because I was in so much agony. And at that time, if somebody would have told me that you're stuck in the matrix, I probably wouldn't have understood, that you're really, really anchored into the matrix and into the slavery system. Yeah, it would not have dawned on me. I would have just thought it's normal to be working 50 hours, 60 hours a week and not getting very much as a restaurant manager, so. But then just thinking that because of all these thoughts I had, that this is the only thing I could do, that I couldn't do anything other than this. It was like the safety and security need was so bad. And then there was so much buried trauma that I had that I was just asleep, not aware. And so the pain was, even though the pain was so great, I still was trying to find ways, I could find a way out of it. What's going on? How do I do this? And sometimes I would meet with other healers, and yet nobody could really help me because they were stuck in their own pain, And you can only receive help from a clear channel if they're free of their own illusions. So through all of it, all of this pain that I was dealing with in my legs and the suffering in my mind, I started to work with people, and I found it really pleasurable working with people because it was really good for me. And then I started to work, and then I started my own practice. After going through all of the changes that I went through, not being able to fit into all these companies, these systems, not being able to fit into them, and not realizing that we are always moving from a mental system to another mental system all the time. This is how we are created. We're dealing with all these systems, these mindsets, and sometimes you can get stuck into a mindset very easily, not realizing that it's just a program. It's all a series of programs that we're accessing all the time. There's a program for everything. And at that time, I didn't realize that. I didn't see the matrix, because I'm so entrenched in it. So many things led to many things. And there was a lot of inquiries. I sat with many different awakened people. Adi Ashanti, he's a really great one. And I used to listen to his stuff all the time just to find peace in my mind. And then I remember when I was listening to his talk, I used to love the way he talked. when you listen to him, your mind would just become so congested really quick, because the mind couldn't understand, because he's speaking purely from his heart all the time. And so I listened to one talk he was giving, and he said that he talked about wanting to be free, or wanting to wake up, and you must be willing to face whatever arises in wanting to do so. You must want it more than anything. You must be willing to experience what it brings you. And he told me about this prayer that he said he had this prayer, and he said, I remember asking the universe sincerely from my heart to awaken no matter what the cost. Awaken no matter what the cost is. And I remember I said that, and I felt through all the immense pain that I was in, the prayer actually went through. It went straight through. I could feel it just go up. And then there's a series of events that took place. The events were so great by magnitude. And then suddenly all the dominoes stopped falling, everything stopped falling. Suddenly the program that I was in, the Sunil program as a hypnotherapist and the life coach, suddenly and living in Portland, the program came to an end, right? And oftentimes, I'll give you an example, when the program ends, you're actually sitting there, and it feels like all the characters are all moved on from your story or your screenplay. So, and then it just feels like it's a dead program. That's what it felt like. The Portland, Oregon program suddenly died, and suddenly everything started caving in inside of me, and I knew that I had to leave, because it was time for me to move on from Portland and come back to England. And I felt like I was being taken out of Portland, and the avatar called Sunil was being moved into England to hold the light, because England, I didn't know at that time, was very, very dark, and it still is. And so as that program was dying, and I was moving back to England, I was a mess. I was really a mess. Everything started falling apart even more inside of me. And as I moved, I remember on the plane coming here, I was more aware of my wounding than I was before. So when I moved to America, I didn't do the groundwork. How could I have done the groundwork? I didn't really know that I had to do any groundwork. But I knew inside the reason for coming to this country was because I had to do the groundwork, and the groundwork was to really know myself and to really be standing my own truth and power. And so coming here, I went through it. I just left all my things in America. I left my home, I left my office, and I just told somebody, just sell it, because I have to go. I don't have time, because I have to move fast now, because everything was starting to close over there for me. So coming here, where I came here, I went through a Saturn return, a mini Saturn return, and that felt like that was the worst experience of my life, to go through one of those. And not only was I going through an awakening, but I had this Saturn return going on, and it felt like somebody was destroying my brain for 24 hours a day. They were crushing it. If you looked at my eyes at that moment, you think the guy looks like he's completely lost it. He was like a Looney Tune. And if those experiences, you can feel like at any moment you could commit suicide, because it's so intense. It's very horrible. And through that, there were still many things that were appearing. Even though I was going through that, I ended up with the experiences I brought on myself. I ended up going through demonic realms as well. So, and for me, going through that, I was like, oh no, I'm not going to survive. And no matter what wherever I went for help, especially the churches, they'd always give me stories of people who didn't make it. They didn't get through these dark nights of the soul. And for me, yeah, I was like, oh, come on, that's not good news. And I thought that these people sincerely could do something to help me. But then I realized, how can they help me when they're stuck in their own darkness? Their job is to keep people stuck in the middle, light, and they keep people stuck between the duality.
Right.
So I didn't know that until I started to see that in a lot of the church people, these ministers. And so I went to India, and that was really difficult for me to go, because I couldn't sleep. Number one, I was taking really high strength painkillers, like sleep medication. And I was like suicidal, beyond suicidal. And I thought, okay, if I go to India, then, I don't think I'm going to come back, because, I think that for me is a way out to go there. So I ended up going to India, and I had some experiences there. And one of the experiences was I experienced a life review. And the life review, at the time I didn't know I was having a life review. And but I chose for some reason to stay. I could have left in the life review, because that was my way out to go. So I chose not to. And I came back to England after that. And still I was thinking, God, I can't do anything. I can't even hold a thought. My memory is really bad. It's like whatever experiences I've gone through have really done a number on my brain. And I'm not really good to anybody. And so I remember one night I was sleeping, and then suddenly I woke up. Something woke me up, and it just held me. This being just held me right there, held my head. And it waved this brush through my brain for like 9 hours. And I was like, what is going on? Yeah. And so after that, my brain was back. So my brain was repaired. So I could think, I could memorize things, I could do things. So that was really amazing for me to experience that. And then the more and more I started to understand gradually. I didn't really realize how much pain I was in initially. I didn't really know until all this happened. I didn't really know that I had all these core pain points, like wounding in my body. Because a lot of the things that we carry is usually in the body. Even though we think it's in here, it's the body that carries it. So, is there anything you want to add? I'm just going.
No, keep going. I've got questions.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So anyway, through that, then a lot of my own pain, my inner child pain started coming up really, really loud. And I was taking these, this time I was really in the dumps, really depressed, and I was like, oh God, I'm back in England. Of all places to be, a dismal place. And so I started to do some research, and I started to reach out to people. I didn't really know what's going on. I didn't have any idea what's going on. And at this stage, I really had no clue that was a starseed. I had no clue that I had the abilities that I had. So whatever amnesia I'd been given was really good, because it made sure that anyone who was a starseed couldn't remember anything about their past. So gradually the amnesia started wearing off, and things became clear to me, and I did different systems, studied different systems. And so then I was curious, why do people, what is the most efficient way to clear information out of the system so that a person doesn't, have to keep suffering? So I was always curious about it. Even when I worked as a therapist, I always knew that even when you put somebody under, you had to work on their pain. You had to deal with that. You couldn't just do a script, because the script would not help somebody become free.
Not as personalized.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
You had to work on the child stuff with them, and whatever pain that they're experiencing or trauma they're experiencing. So, and I had different ways to deal with that were really successful with a lot of people. And then I started working with my guides when I work people. So, and I always have amazing results with so many people. And I fast forward to back in England here, where in my own stuff, really in my own illusions, more and more, I started to understand as I started to understand about the wounding that we all carry, and how the wounding plays a big part in our story, and how we show up in life to people. So if I come from a place of the victim, or rescuer, or something, that if I don't deal with that, then that is essentially how I'm going to deal with my whole life. So these things will play out, and you keep creating characters to support your story. And so I started to understand the wounding. I took a call. I started studying. It's called Gene Keys. So I started studying this stuff, and I became aware of the wounding. And then I realized that there had to be, for me, I had to look at, okay, how do I deal with this wounding? And that was just to feel the emotion, feel the emotion that was trapped in the body. And so then I start to become really aware of all of this stuff. And then my starseed nature started to kick in through it all. And I started to remember, I was like, oh my God, it's like I've been walking in all this darkness for probably like many years of my life. And not realizing that I knew how to neutralize it all along, but I've forgotten how. I just forgot. I wasn't aware of how to do it. And so I was able to neutralize all this energy that I was carrying from my ancestors. So oftentimes it's the ancestors who you could end up, carrying their stuff. If it's very dark, sometimes it can play out in your life in such a way that you have these episodes that can become quite dark, and you're inside like, what the hell is really going on? How do I do this? And even though if you think to yourself that prayer will do it to a certain point, but if you don't address the wounding inside it, again, you'll be stuck in the story. You'll be acting out these horrible scenarios, demonic scenarios, all these things. And so I realized as I went through this, that I don't have to pay attention to all these things. I don't have to pay attention to demonic stuff, or even though my ancestors were involved in all that stuff. Whatever it is, as long as I don't buy into it, as long as I don't let it become like a mountain over me, I'm free, So, but I also understood how to clear all this information out of my brain and out of my body. So the darkness that people experience, that's going on in the world right now, is really just a collective darkness. And it's people who are saying, oh no, I don't want to deal with that. I can't deal with that. It's too much. How do I deal with that? It's too overwhelming, But I can say for a fact that I saw the most darkest nights that some people would just bail out. Some people would kill themselves. I mean, I had things where I remember I would do these prayers and I would be sitting in my room doing it. Suddenly the door would open fast. And it'd be like this, it'd be like a horror movie. And you feel all this cold air, and you'd be like, what is really going on? And, but again, even though when these things happen, it was having that courage to face it, just to face these evil spirits or whatever they are. And to just keep moving through the layers of it. And knowing that I could not be defeated, even if I was hell, I would not let them take me down. So I knew that. And that happened to me. So with all the immense darkness that I experienced, because my father didn't deal with his darkness and passed it on, I had to face all this darkness and also evolve from his consciousness. So his consciousness was left at the low frequency range, where he had sold himself out to the dark forces. And I had to contend with that. So breaking free of his consciousness meant I had to break free of the dark force consciousness that he carried. And doing that meant this energy that we would call it like a ET energy. I didn't know that then, but it is like a ET energy. The dark force is ET energy. And these guys were trying to pull me down, take me down. So, but the more inside of me, I said, no way. And I remember I had this dream, where in my dream, I had these polar bears. There were these white polar bears and black bears. And the white ones were attacking all the black bears, in my dream. So it was telling me, my subconscious was telling me that we're winning. We will win this. And so the more I started to remember myself, then the more I realized again that I could bypass all of this stuff easily. As long as I didn't buy into it, as long as I didn't believe it, as long as I knew that I'm a hologram and this is all a program, for me. So the biggest thing for me was when I went through that and I started work on my own wounding. Then my sister, what would happen is they would upgrade me. So upgrade means that the galactics would upgrade my system. So I was more in tune with them upgrading me all the time. And then even then, I wouldn't have, if somebody would have told me that my actual being, my galactic nature, is probably in a ship somewhere else in another galaxy, and that I'm here in this holographic field, playing this character in this movie, and then playing everybody else in the movie as well who comes into my life, I would have that's done. At that stage, I'll go, it's too much for me. But now, obviously, from my standpoint, I do understand that, I am a hologram, and my galactic nature is actoring. So, and that in the module that I'm here in this experiment, what they've got going on right now. And the experiment is to evolve this planet for the first time ever, probably millions, like lifetimes or however many years. So, but it really is one of these things where being committed to the light, to be committed to looking at your own darkness, your own blind spots all the time, because everybody has free will. So if you don't watch internally for when you get seduced by yourself to look for the way out of what you're doing, you can easily end up going backwards.
We just wanted to take a quick break to talk about our sponsor for today's episode, Path 11 TV. Not a fan of watching videos on your computer or laptop? Neither are we. That's why we recently launched the Path 11 TV app for your smartphone and TV. Now you can watch on your iPhone, iPad, and Android devices. Or if you prefer to wind down in your living room, you can now watch on your Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire devices. For listeners of the podcast, the easiest way to get started is by pointing your web browser to path11tv.com and starting a 7-day free trial. But be sure to use coupon code PODCAST30. Again, that's PODCAST30 to take 30% off of an annual membership for maximum savings. Once your membership is started, visit your smartphone or TV's app store and download the Path 11 TV app. Once downloaded, you can then link to your newly created account and start streaming on the go or relaxing in your living room. Visit path11tv.com for all the details. When you talk about the dark forces, the demons, and that experience and that door flying open, do you think that was just attached to maybe a belief system that you had, and that really the door flying open and some of the things that you experienced in your conscious mind, was that just really a reflection of the low vibration of energy of depression, sadness, everything that you were looking at and going through, and the physical pain? Was it just a manifestation of energy that felt scary, that felt demonic?
It's, again, I put all that down to your wounding, right? If I look at myself now compared to when I was in 2016, and look, I'm very different. If I would have even told myself I went through that, I would have probably looked at myself and said to myself, was it necessary to go through that? Did you have to go through that? But because the consciousness was at that level, right? It wasn't evolved yet. It wasn't free as I am now. So in that place where I was at, you could say that it felt really real for me. And would I say it's belief systems? No, I would say it's more your wounding.
Okay.
I don't really, I look at belief systems and I look at patterns, right? We all carry. But what I feel with all that stuff is that when you address the wounding, that the shame, the guilt, the fear, the anxiety, all these things, when you address or even evil, when you start addressing the wounding that is inside of you to do with that, if you don't address it, it plays out. Because then you think, oh God, these dark forces are real. My father's this, all these things are all real. Even though this planet wasn't a demonic realm. It was in a heavily demonic realm, in the 3D consciousness. Even though now it's moving, it's going straight to the light. So all these things no longer will be able to exist in this holographic field. So it's all changing. But yeah, to answer your question, when you change your consciousness, then you realize that it really is just a program that you're moving through.
Okay. Well, and the other thing that I found interesting were the words that you use, that you would like to awaken at any and all costs, like no matter what.
Right.
And as you were saying that, I was like, well, okay, so then it was a tough awakening. And I was wondering if we set the intent, I'd like to awaken gently.
Totally, yeah. It's like you see, right? If I would have known that, of course I would have asked for that.
Yeah, of course. So everyone listening, know that you can ask. So that doesn't have to be traumatic, or doesn't have to.
Well, look, the upgrades that have been going on the planet right now have helped people start to awaken, right? So many people are starting to, they've already experiencing the freedom within and questioning reality. What is it really true? What I'm seeing, is it really true? What really is going on? Because the rabbit hole can go, it just keeps going sometimes. Because there's so much stuff. Sometimes when you study it, you go, oh, really? It's overwhelming. But now the awakening, I think, for a lot of people, it's. I don't think it doesn't have to be like that. No.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the neutralizing of emotion. So our conversation is just, of course, happening at an uncanny time because I'm going through a program myself to do everything that you're talking about, right? And, I have a background in mental health. I'm a mental health therapist. I've been, like you, seeking teachers and studying and learning this healing modality and this healing modality. And then, I got launched into meeting a new teacher that is really talking about all that you're talking about. Like, we're doing so much work with the wounding, the inner child, hypnotherapy, neutralizing the emotions, exactly with what you said, and also understanding that we can unplug and clear the ancestral lineage, the past life, and even the Akashic records, and it really is kind of where I am is very much in this neutralization state that you're talking about. So an example I'll give, and then maybe you can talk more about it too, was I was running this situation by my teacher of, it was another person that clearly was triggering an emotion within me. And so his directive was, I'd like you to go back in time and think about the first person that ever brought up that emotion for you. And it took me a while to think about it. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I know who that is. I remember. And, it was something so small and minute, but it was enough to trigger me when I was dealing with somebody that I felt was not being honest and trying to take advantage of others and manipulate their mind, and it was coming out in a person that I had met a couple months ago, but really the wounding went all the way back to this 12-year-old that was playing a Monopoly game with my cousin's boyfriend at the time, who was doing all of these things. And then learning how to heal that, with the techniques that I'm learning. And then this neutralization that happens is that you're no longer perceiving anyone as good or bad, or, oh, I'm going to label this person as this, because that initial wound, like the very root of it, I was able to heal and clear. And then I totally understand what you're talking about beginning to move through life feeling very neutral, if we're talking about the same thing.
Totally,
And it's this state of not being always in a state of being triggered or highly emotional, or, like you said, creating the characters. Then all of a sudden, this person in my life will come in and trigger that same emotion. And there's that person again. And when you're in this neutral state, I feel like you have so much more access to the light. I mean, it's like that, like you said, no longer becomes a focus. It's not a distraction, because you're holding yourself and your energy in a totally different state of being without this like subconscious programming of the wounds that's always there that you don't even know is like so constant and loud.
Yeah.
And here, and I don't know if you felt this way, but here I've going through this program and I'm like, my gosh, what work have I been doing? Because I feel like the real work is starting now.
It is. It's really when you, when you're, and I don't know what level of awakening you're at, so I don't want to.
I don't know either.
I don't want to come across as like, but I know what you're going through with your, and I'm just going to speak from my experience now. When you're not unplugged from the matrix, I'll say that you can do all this work, and you're constantly, you're always working on yourself, but you don't know if you're working efficiently or if you're really, you can't tell until you get to those centers inside of you, those core centers, those wounding centers. When you unplug from the matrix, see, when I unplugged from the matrix, I felt like somebody was emptying my built up junk mail in my brain. Mm-hmm. And that was going on all the time. And I was like terrified, right? And so, because I didn't really understand what was going on, because I felt all this energy dissolving in my brain all the time, and I was like, "Oh shit, that's screwed." Number one, nobody understands what I'm going through, and they all think I'm weird. But it was an experience.
Yeah.
Now back to you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I know we only have like about 10 minutes left here, but I want to ask a little more information about this upgrade because, the other thing that I have been experiencing since January, since this new also like a shift in consciousness is also what I'm hearing. Like you're saying, we're moving from 3D. My teacher's talking about 5D. Yeah. Moving from 3 into 5. So, of course, I had some interesting medical issues that are going on that no medical doctors can figure out what's happening. So that's what has triggered me in this year to really dive deep and go into the emotion and see what's happening. And as this is happening, at nighttime, I am experiencing really weird sensations in my dream state. I'm experiencing sometimes fluttering in certain parts of my body that it's very difficult to put into words, but it feels as if something else is working within my system in places where I have this pain, where my emotion is probably stored, that's being worked on. Like it feels as if I'm on somebody's table because I know what an energy healing feels like. And then the mind thing, like, I'm wondering as you're talking and like this clearing of the cache in the mind, if that is maybe I am going through some sort of upgrade as well, because the dream state and the experience is very very psychedelic and strange before I actually hit the sleep, like, and go into like the dream world. And it really feels like I am definitely in a different dimension, and it makes me feel very dizzy. It makes me almost feel like, oh, should I get up and out of this? Like, am I safe? Am I okay? But I'm feeling a different state of consciousness
Yeah.
right before sleep that I've never experienced before.
Look, it's very possible, right? That we obviously, like, we all know that we're a hologram. You are a hologram. I'm a program. That's how we define it. So an example of what for me is when whatever the upgrades are going on, I know that the galactics, I can feel when they upgrade my system because they'll really hit me physically and I can't move. I'll be stuck and I'll be like, oh God, it's like I can't do anything. Or if something's fallen, I can't pick it up. I can't do it because it's just my system has been totally completely upgraded, and it's up to me to undo the illusion that what I perceive to be reality.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It's an illusion because
mm-hmm.
it's really we're the hologram. The hologram is perfect. It's already perfect health in the hologram.
Right.
Who we are, we somehow detached from perfect health. And without even realizing that the hologram can actually be evolved and upgraded as much as you want. So you must understand that. So to access the understanding of the hologram is to realize that we are just these energetic systems. And what's happened to us, we somehow, with magical thinking, believed that either we are separate or we need to, suffer, or we need to become identified with these certain diseases. Because they give us something. At the core, they give us something. So when we realize that, oh God, I am my own chemistry experiment, and whatever I'm doing isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
So it does help when you become free of the matrix, because then you realize that, it's just a program. They're all a series of programs, mindsets. It's like when you meet somebody and you think you're going to live with them forever, but then you find out that you're both just in the same mindset, where you're moving into another mindset of marriage. It's a mindset. We have to do this. It's another mindset. Or, we've got to be a happy couple, even though we're not. It's a mindset. It's all programs, so that we can become more free to be in that, here, to move more to here into the body. So, yeah, we're all being given this opportunity right now to realize that we're so much greater than we are.
Yeah.
And that all these things that we deal with, you have to understand. See, for me, I always struggled as a kid to understand stuff. I couldn't understand stuff, and I had a lot of trauma as a child. So I was very traumatized as a kid, but it completely moved me out of my body. So I couldn't. And usually, when you study, you have to be in your body, with the uncomfortable emotions that come up.
Mm-hmm.
And so moving through all of that for me, and realizing that I had so many blocks when it came to education as a child. I didn't know then. I already was. I was a genius. I was a genius, taught you genius as a child, because I got all this information coming in from into my hologram. I couldn't really do anything with it because I had parents who were so checked out. It was just a very dysfunctional family.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had to realize I had to work through. It wasn't the people that were dysfunctional around me. It was me who was dysfunctional. I had to look at my own wounding. This helps me understand now, and to realize that I'm a very gifted person. So I can do things with people. I can perform miracles with people because I'm in touch with my, with that nature of who I am.
Yeah.
So I'm like a doctor. Yeah.
And you cover a full range of different things. So for our listeners, those of you who are struggling with relationships, Sunil covers that. He covers confidence building, panic disorder coaching, trauma coaching, weight loss, past life, sports performance, and business mentoring. So you cover the gamut. So as we're coming to a close, let my audience know where they can find you if they resonated with you and your energy and would like to, contact you maybe for a session. Where can they find you?
It's asksunil.co.uk. You can also find me on Facebook, on my business page, which is Sunil How. And there's probably two areas. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Sunil Varma, and that's going to hit hypnotherapist, CHT, Sunil Varma CHT. Now, I also want to say that my background is hypnotherapy, but I just got a whole bunch of, I know how to help people become free really quick. If they're in that place where they want to move through things, I could do that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, this was an amazing conversation. I feel like I could have you on again, and I might have you on again to talk, in depth and kind of take apart a little bit of your story and, spend more time with you. But thank you so much. It was really great to meet you and love the work you're doing. So take care.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's show. If you haven't already, please subscribe and rate and review the Path 11 podcast in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, this podcast is made possible by our sponsor, Path 11 TV. Visit path11tv.com to start a 7-day free trial and start streaming over 100 hours of exclusive video content on consciousness, healing, and life after death. That's path11tv.com, and be sure to use coupon code podcast30 to take 30% off your annual membership. Start satisfying your spiritual curiosity with a membership to Path 11 TV today. Bye for now.